lean hard, double down on San Diego as a cultural destination. And so that's what Vanguard Culture tries to do. We're trying to put it all in one place that, hey, we've got these cool, underground, funky things happening that you need to know about. And it's almost like I'm giving everybody like the insider, hey, come here, let me show you something. Having us known as the cultural destination that we deserve to be. And I'm going to play a role in that to the extent that I can.
Welcome to the Shaping Freedom podcast, where we dive into conversations that inspire personal growth, transformation, and clarity in challenging times. I'm your host, Lisane Basquiat. Today, I get to sit down with my friend, Susanna Peredo Swap. Susanna is one of those people who lives and breathes creativity, not just as an artist, but as a cultural force. She's an award-winning producer, journalist, and filmmaker with more than 25 years of experience across arts administration, performance, and advocacy. She has curated over 80 exhibitions at the San Diego International Airport. She co-led Arts and Culture for World Design Capital San Diego, Tijuana in 2024. And she founded Vanguard Culture, a nonprofit that has earned 72 awards for excellence in journalism, 2 Gold Anthem Awards by the Webbies, and even a feature in National Geographic. But Susanna's personal journey is as expansive as it is inspiring, from being raised by a single immigrant mother, to navigating a spinal cord injury, to summiting Mont Blanc, to building a family and a legacy that champions creativity, community, cultural connection, and a deep commitment to building a thriving creative ecosystem. Susanna, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Super happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. It sounds very formal. We're friends outside of this.
I know, right?
And
where are the tequila shots? Let's start there.
I know, right? This should have been like talking tequila, because had we done it'd be a different conversation, right?
For sure.
I always have like an overarching question for the episode, and it's really, and it's just more of a guidepost. And one of the questions that I'd love to have answered, to have our conversation answer, is how do the arts serve as a bridge, not just to beauty and to culture, but also to resilience, healing, and the shaping of legacy? Because there are absolute direct ties. And so that's kind of like the overarching question that we'll think about during this conversation. But I figure let's start with kind of your own journey, right? I did not realize that you'd had a spinal cord injury until I read your bio.
Yeah, most people don't know.
Yeah. So tell us about that. Let's start with, what a place to start, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about your journey a little bit.
Well, it's interesting because, it was a car accident when I was 5 years old. And I don't remember much of it. I remember bits and pieces of that day. And it's funny because connected to the arts, when I think about my injury, I shattered 2 vertebrae. It was devastating. I started to lose feeling in my left arm and in my legs. I was in a wheelchair for a while. I wore a full neck and body brace for months. And as a child, you're 5, you just want to jump around and run and all of that. But I wasn't allowed to. My cousins would be, swimming, and I wasn't allowed to get in. So that journey I don't remember it. It's so long ago, I really don't remember most of it. But the scars are definitely there physically. And because it's on my back, it feels like it's literally and physically behind me, metaphorically and literally behind me. And so I hardly ever pay attention to it. Yet there's been something that has driven me. I think because I almost died. I think because I almost didn't walk forever and all of those things that happened. I've always had this drive in me to like live the most that I could and do the most things that I possibly could. And even with, growing up in a single parent household, young, very, very young immigrant mother, um, I never, I always somehow had this idea that I was going to see the world and do big things. And, I never thought, oh, I'm just going to have whatever job comes to me. I just had this vision of living to my absolute maximum. So that has driven me. And and the part that connects to the arts, which is interesting, is that a few years ago, I want to say about 5 years ago, this friend of mine, artist who was doing this series, she's a textile artist, and she started doing this series where she would highlight women who had dealt with some sort of traumatic event in their life, some sort of physical injury. But she would create like a really beautiful moment of textile beauty, and at the juncture, at the point where it happened. And she asked me if I could be part of it. I said, yes, of course. And then she started asking me questions. Oh, like which vertebrae was it? And exactly where, like all these things. And I realized I didn't have these answers because this happened in 1982, and all the documents are in Mexico City, who knows where. And, getting a hold of the doctor, I mean, like, good luck, finding all this out. And because it is, thankfully, I recovered and I'm fine, I never went down that rabbit hole. So I realized I didn't have any answers to all of these questions that she was asking me. So I started going down that rabbit hole and interviewing everybody in my family just out of curiosity. And it took me down the most beautiful route. And it was just so inspirational. And the crazy part is that my dad has kept in touch with the surgeon all these years.
And you didn't know?
And I just never thought to ask.
Wow.
So I actually had an opportunity to go to Mexico City and meet him and thank him. And that was beautiful. That was beautiful. So now I'm writing a book, and it's a sort of a short fiction. It's nonfiction. It's based off of my story, but it's fictionalized. And through that journey, I've gotten a chance to interview an actual spinal surgeon, thanks to my husband's introduction of that person, and getting to create world making in this journey has been, wow. I feel like I'm just walking around looking for content, looking for, ooh, that could be a good story. Ooh, that could be a good story.
Yeah, I think there's something about being, first of all, being first generation, that just by virtue of the fact that you're navigating the world in a different way or through a different perspective, um, and then having navigated something happening, a traumatic event happening to your physical body at such a young age, there's something about that that really helps to set the stage for the way that you encounter the rest of your life, because it's different. You were a little girl sitting and watching other children play and swim and jump around. And there's something to that, not bad or good, but there's something to that that I would imagine really helped to shape the way that you see the world and yourself in it.
Absolutely. I mean, and that moment in time became the turning point for a lot of things, right? So that was when I came to the United States, um, not knowing how to speak English. I was learning English through uh, music, memorizing songs, TV shows, things like that. And my mom was a very young mom. She had me when she was 17. So we kind of grew up together, and her making her choices and figuring out how to also, in her limited English, maneuver through this country. But so much grit, I mean, just like amazing that she pulled that off and raised a I think a good human, not
You're a
bad.
pretty good human.
I mean, now that I'm a mom, I can appreciate what it took,
Yeah.
to do all of that, of course. And I took it for granted growing up. But absolutely, I mean, being an immigrant is 100% a huge part of my journey. And I take it seriously. I take that responsibility very seriously in terms of reaching back behind me and pulling others up, and not just sort of. It's interesting, this new generation. I think about it a lot. The we've been through some very interesting few years, right? Um, Through the cultural reckoning that happened over the the pandemic itself, the Me Too movement, all of these things that have happened, and I think about like our immigrant journey and the community that had to come together. But I also think about my generation. So I'm almost 50, and my generation, sometimes I was the only woman in the room. Sometimes I was the only Latina in the room. And it wasn't like, here's our token Latina. No, it was literally like somehow I forced and maneuvered my way in there.
Yeah, you got yourself into that room. Yeah, and happened to just be the only one. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't performative. It wasn't like, oh, we have to have one Black person and one Latina. It wasn't anything like that. Now, or at least the last few years, possibly has been some of that, right? It's just performative, like, oh, we need a person on our board that's of color, right? Things like that. But that wasn't happening before. There was no expectation of that. And so I can appreciate, sometimes this generation calling people out for that and saying, oh, that's so performative, or that's this. But sometimes you just have to be grateful to be in the room and speak. And while you're there, speak your mind and have a voice. And you're there for a reason. There's, maybe they don't want you there, but you're there. So do something with that, and open doors for others. So yeah, I do take that very seriously.
Yeah. And I think part of it is also, in my corporate career, I often found myself as the only woman and the only Black person in technology, which is kind of the early part of my career. And I think there are people who believed or who would believe that it had to do with anything other than what it had to do with, which was that I was really good at what I did and had been asked to come and do, the work that I was doing. But I think that I'm bringing that up because I think it's so important to own what you want to get done. And I think that's one of the things, I don't think, that is one of the things that I really admire about you, and it's even the way that we began to develop a friendship because we got introduced by a mutual friend, Greg Snare. And, um, and it was at the early stages of Vanguard Culture, the nonprofit that you founded that I'd love to hear more about in a moment. And you just had this incredible grit. You were not accepting a no. You were not, you were just like, I really want to talk to you about this thing. I really want to talk. I'm really passionately connected to and committed to bringing the creative community together here in San Diego, where we are. And I think that that is the thing, right? That's the way that you have carved out a space for yourself in whichever room you're choosing to be in. And I think it's inspirational, and it's an important lesson for those folks who are listening. If there's something
Yeah.
that you're passionate about, do it. Do it. And don't worry about what people think. Don't worry about the assumptions that people make or any of that, because that says more about them than it does about you. Do what you can to make it happen. And you live that. You're a testament to that.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I can own that. Can we curse on this?
You can curse. Yes, you can curse. There's no regulation here.
Oh, right. I always call myself a get shit doner, because that's like the thing
Hmm.
I do. It's like
Yeah.
I've been to, I've had a 25-year career, and or more beyond that in my performance years, but sometimes people just want to sit and create documents and have another meeting about the meeting and the thing. And I'm like, can we just do the thing? Can we just do the thing? It's not that complicated. So I really lean into like, okay, who do I need to bring into the room in order for the thing to get accomplished, right? Who are the doers, the shakers, the people who actually accomplish things in San Diego? And I just, I mean, speaking about when we met, I'm very determined about that. Like when I find somebody that I just like admire and am inspired and awe of, I feel like, okay, you're going to be in my life.
Oh yeah, that's how it was.
Yeah. I mean, I
and after a while,
like
I was like, I think I'm going to be in her life. Okay. I'm down.
This is happening.
What's happening? Okay. That's good.
Yeah. But if you notice, I'm surrounded by people like that. Like that's who I surround myself with. Like everybody in our world for Vanguard Culture are all like these powerhouse, interesting, worldly, like dynamic humans that get shit done. And so I just gravitate toward those kinds of people, especially women, right? And women of color, especially too, because we have a whole other layer that we navigate. And there are so few spaces like that of mentorship, of friendship, of like lifting each other up. So yeah, I mean, and when you met me, I love that, or when we met, I love that you called me out, and I tell this story because I just, I was like, oh.
What did I call you out? I don't even remember.
See, here's the thing. Like I lived in New York for a little while. So I was raised between here and Mexico City. I went back and forth with my divorced parents. And so I spent a lot of time in Mexico City. And when you have lived in these big cities, you can appreciate people who just say the thing, right? Yeah. Sometimes you're here in California and people are like so nice, and they kind of like dance around the thing they want to say and all that. And I'm like, and then they turn around and I mean, not everybody's this way, but sometimes they'll turn around and do something else.
Yeah.
And I really just appreciate like, give it to me. Tell me the thing, like I'm not afraid of good criticism, especially if it's meant to serve you, right? To support you. And at the time, we had been an all volunteer organization for many years. And one of the things that we do and have done for years is professional development for creatives. So we teach people, how to do your taxes and marketing and branding and finance management and all these things that you don't learn in any art school, no matter what your degree is. And so I said that, as part of, we do our arts journalism, we do professional development, we do events. And, we help teach artists how to make a living doing the thing that they love. And you said, well, you can't do that. If you're not paying yourself a salary, you can't be in a position of telling other people how to make a living. And I was like,
oh, I forgot I said that.
I feel seen.
Oh my,
but
that's
it
right.
changed the trajectory of the organization, because I think I might have met you, I don't know, maybe the summer or spring of whatever year that was. And then by the end of, and I told myself, okay, by the end of this year, starting next year. So I'm going to give myself the rest of this year to find a way to give myself a salary. And I did. And by February of that next year, I had a salary. It was the first time we had ever had an employee. And we went down the HR rabbit hole, all the things, to make it official. And now we have 2 employees and we're growing. I mean, we're in a beautiful new office space in downtown. And it's like, you just changed the whole trajectory. And I really obviously appreciate you for calling me out.
Wow. I don't even remember saying that. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I did.
Yeah,
wow.
I love that. I love that you were very honest about it.
Sometimes I drop, I'm putting this in air quotes, direct statements and keep it moving. And sometimes they come back to me and folks are like, do you remember when you said this thing? And I'm like, I don't. But was it good or bad? Did it work or not? Like, which way did it go? Wow.
Well, it worked.
Hey, it's Lisane. I created Protect Your Peace, a boundaries and accountability workshop, because I know what it's like to feel stretched too thin and how it feels when you're saying yes to everyone else, but feel like you're disappearing in the process. This workshop is your invitation to pause and to come back to you. In just 2 hours, you'll learn how to set boundaries that reflect your values, protect your energy, and strengthen your voice unapologetically. You'll also learn how to hold yourself accountable in a way that builds self-trust and momentum, not burnout. This is the kind of space I wish I had when I was deep in the cycle of over-responsibility and simply just doing too much. So I created it for you. Join me for Protect Your Peace, live or on demand, and walk away with tools you can use immediately to get back in alignment. Click the link in the show notes to register. You deserve to protect your peace and your power. Let's talk about Vanguard Culture. What is it? What are you looking to accomplish through this nonprofit? What's the work?
So the organization started actually 13 years ago. I've lived many worlds. I've had many careers. I started in the theater. And I studied at the Royal National Theatre in London. I taught at the Old Globe here in San Diego. I'm also a jazz vocalist. I had a band and I was gigging around all over. So I made a whole career for about 10 years, just being a creative professional, paying my rent, doing all of that. It was my livelihood. And then somehow I landed as a series of happy accidents, I'll call them. I ended up working as a curator. And so I worked in various arts administration kind of roles. One of them was the Airport Authority, where I curated 80 exhibitions that you mentioned. And we had a very robust performing arts series as well. So I started getting connected to the rest of the performing arts community in San Diego. And like I'd bump into artists all the time. Now I was connected to all these industries, right? And I would meet somebody like a film festival director that says, hey, do you know any like a dancer who can do this one specific thing? And then I'd meet a dancer that's like, do you know anyone with a projector? And I'm like, oh yeah, here, you talk to each other. And it kept happening over and over and over again. And I'm like, y'all just need to meet. Like, how do I get you in the same room at the same time? So I started this little series called the Foodie Soirees. And it was just basically a potluck, right? But it was a potluck that also encouraged, so everybody brought a dish to share with 50 people, little mini bites, in that kind of format. And of course, artists are artists. So the food ended up being also beautiful and creative and delicious and all the things. So I was like, oh, this is great. But also we would encourage people to share their talent. So if you're a spoken word artist, bring that. If you're a dancer, show something, whatever it was, monologues. And so it started very casual, just getting everybody together. We limited it to the first 50 people that would RSVPs. But my list was in it's now in the thousands. At that time, it was about 1,000 people that I was sending these invites to, first come, first serve. You never knew who was going to be in the room. Sometimes it was a lot of dance community or theater community or visual arts community. And then slowly, because of who was in the room, right? These are now like executive directors of big arts institutions and all that. The quality started getting elevated. So for example, we've had huge art installations in people's backyards. We've had opera singers that have performed at Carnegie Hall and the Sydney Opera House in people's living rooms. I held one in my home once, and I had the California Ballet performing in my living room with the director of a museum on the floor, sitting on a pillow, watching the show. And so even though it's very casual, it's also very like high level. And we've continued the tradition so that series continues. If we just always have to find someone who can host 50 people in their home. So that's where the idea started. And that's the essence of us. It's like, how can we just come together and create community and know each other and feel comfortable picking up the phone and saying, hey, I know a filmmaker who maybe they can help us, that kind of vibe. And then it slowly started turning into arts journalism. Like, hey, I'm a writer. Would it be okay? I know you have a website. So we created this website with the intention of highlighting those quirky, underground, funky, interesting things happening in San Diego that are super unique, that don't get much visibility, because usually the folks that get the visibility is like the zoo and SeaWorld and like the big attractions, and the big institutions tend to get more coverage. So I was like, okay, well, let's focus on the Vanguard culture, like the quirky, funky things going on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm hearing this story.
Yeah. And so one of our one of the gals started writing and doing coverage, and then we submitted it to some awards. We won an award. We were like, oh, that's interesting. We could win awards for this thing. Okay. And then more writers were like, hey, I saw you ever. So now we have like 13 writers that review shows and interview artists. As you mentioned, we've won a bunch of awards for excellence in journalism. We open up the floor. We give opportunities to emerging writers. But we also have brought in a lot of seasoned journalists that are touching arts coverage for the first time and giving them a platform to cover something that they love, not just their jobby job. And we do professional development for creatives. So we've done that for years. All of our content's on YouTube for free. And then the last thing we do is our events. And that's kind of what we're known for. We're very intentional about bringing together film, theater, fashion, dance, visual arts, music, all to one place at the same time, and encouraging creative collaboration. We'll give them like a theme or something to work from. So we've had some really wild, interesting events where from a small scale to huge festivals where we bring the community together and kind of showcase little nuggets of everything that they do. And that builds community because they're bringing their audiences, and audiences are rubbing elbows. Like the spoken word audience is rubbing elbows with the San Diego Symphony audience, and they're rubbing elbows, with the culinary community. And all of a sudden it's been just a beautiful journey. And I love the creation part of what I do.
You put on incredible events, incredible. And they are everything that you describe, where for those folks who want to be within the diversity of creatives, I'll say that, right? Um, your events provide such medicine for that because you get to go and there was an event that I went to I don't know, a few months ago of yours where it was like there was a choir singing and there were like people dancing and there was like something happening in every corner of the space. Really, really beautiful. You have one coming up.
Yeah. So every 2 years, we host a big conference called the Mashup. This is a creative industry symposium where we really focus on bringing the best of the best of arts leadership, business leadership, for panels, workshops, everything from business mindset type things to mental wellness to AI, having difficult conversations about what the future brings and the disruptions that are happening in the world, how we come together as a community and tackle those. And so it's a 2-day conference taking place October 4th and 5th. It's at the Soap Factory in Logan Heights in person, but virtual the second day. And all of the in-person sessions will be recorded and available for future viewing. So you can still register no matter where you are in the world and get 2 entire days of incredible speakers and conversations and workshops that are going to help you take your arts hobby and turn it into an actual career. Like take it seriously, which is what we always encouraging people to do. And I'll just share, I come from a long line of creative professionals, which has been an interesting backwards journey because I always hear the opposite. So everyone in my life, in my family, almost everyone are all like musicians, actors, models, hosts, TV personalities, those types of people. The only group that has kind of a real job are the architects. We have some
You
architects
said
in
a
our
real
life.
job. You have a real
Yeah.
job.
No, but you know what a traditional job, right?
I want creativity to be the tradition. I want to
Right.
switch
Yeah.
things.
But even so, but of course that's also a creative job, right? I mean, that's still a creative job. So when I got my first, now I don't know what to call it, not a real job, but when I got my first government, I worked for the National City, was my first government job. And, as an immigrant, young Latina, I was like, I made it. Like, I have a job that has a salary and, benefits and, a retirement plan, which I didn't even know anything what that meant. I have no idea what all that meant. And so I went to my family. I'm like, I got this job, I just graduated. And they're like, oh no, why? Oh, you're not going to sing anymore. What about your theater? Oh no.
Wow.
Like, they were so worried about me. And I just thought, this is the most backwards ass
Totally.
thing.
Totally. Yeah.
It's so funny. And, but it was still in the arts. Like, it was still an arts administrative job. But I somehow had created this narrative in my mind that that's what they wanted from me, that that's what they hoped for me and expected for me, to go and get a good job that's settled, a good, solid foundation type of job instead of the gigging thing. But it was the total opposite. They were like, no, we love gigging. This is amazing.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I love my life. Why would you want anything else?
Wow.
Yeah. It's been a journey.
That's interesting. You once said, or I heard that you once said, you can dispute it, that arts are more than entertainment, that they're an engine for community transformation. What did you mean by that?
Arts is an engine. Arts is an economic engine. And I thank you for asking that question. I think that the journey of being an arts advocate has also been something that I've stepped into unexpectedly. But it's important to realize the impact that your work has on not just individual lives, but the entire region. So I'm on the board of Women in Tourism and Hospitality International. And one of the things that I get passionate about is cultural tourism. So cultural tourists, it's been shown again and again and again, cultural tourists stay longer and spend more money in the cities that they visit than the traditional leisure tourist.
And what is a cultural tourist?
Right. So a cultural tourist is someone who is there for an opera performance, a specific event, a specific cultural event. Like they flew to your city because they want to go see the opera, the symphony, the ballet, a big art show, a big exhibition, right? They flew there to see it. And while they're there, they will tend to go to a nice restaurant that weekend. They will go to a museum the next day. They'll make a whole thing of it. They'll stay a couple extra days and make a whole weekend of it, like a 3-day weekend, versus someone who's here for the weather. We have amazing weather in San Diego. If you're here for surfing, you're probably going to stay at an Airbnb. This is a big assumption, or a big generalization. But of course, you're probably going to stay at an Airbnb, which brings no TOT dollars to the region. You're probably going to, have a couple tacos and beers by the beach, call it a weekend, and go home and say you had a fabulous time in San Diego. But if you're for the opera, you're here to spend money in restaurants, in hotels, in all the auxiliary spaces. You're going to try to get as much. If you're an arts and culture person, you're going to try and gather as much of arts and culture as you can. And I think about this because I've had incredible, the blessing of having lived in Paris, London, New York, Mexico City, like these big cultural meccas of the world. So if you go to Paris, even if you are not an arts person necessarily, your visual arts is not your thing, you're going to go to see the Mona Lisa. You're going, right? No matter, because why? Because the city told you that if you come to Paris and you didn't see the Mona Lisa, you didn't come to Paris, right? And so that's what I mean is the impact of cultural tourism, is that people like that money, the TOT dollars, the transient occupancy tax that is collected from hotel stays in San Diego, it funds infrastructure projects, programs, homelessness issue, resources, all sorts of things. And the city's, the way that the city here in San Diego is structured, we get almost 1 penny out of every dollar that comes through the TOT tax. And we've been fighting for penny for the arts, this phrase, for like 10 years. And we still haven't gotten our penny for the arts. But we're still fighting it, and we're still working on it. So call your legislators. But that money is the money that goes to the department, the the it's now rebranded. It used to be called the Commission for Arts and Culture, the city's Department of Cultural Affairs. And that's the money that gets just redistributed to all of the arts institutions in San Diego. So your cultural tourism literally funds the arts in our region. But it's an economic engine to the tune of $10 billion that we've brought to our region here alone, just in cultural tourism.
Wow. So how can people help to get, maybe let's start with the penny on the dollar. How can people help and support that?
I don't think a penny's enough. I'm being honest. I think it should double or triple. I don't think that's the argument that you can. That's the speaking point that you're welcome to borrow and share when you're talking to a business person that doesn't believe in the impact of the arts and in why should we support the arts? We have all these issues. We have, potholes and homelessness and all these things. Like, let me tell you why. Because if you invest in cultural tourism, you're going to attract TOT dollars to the region, which then reverberates and gives you the bottom line funding that you need to tackle those issues. That's your speaking point right there.
That's right.
So share that widely.
That's a good one. That's really good. How do you see San Diego's creative ecosystem evolving? And where do you think it needs the most investment or support? So I know we're talking about the dollars from TOT, but where else does the creative ecosystem need help?
Well, the city of San Diego recently had this year-long study. They went to, I don't remember how many communities. I want to say it was over 50 communities in the region, had these workshop sessions asking them about their needs. And they identified the top two needs in San Diego were affordable artist housing and affordable event spaces. Those are the top two needs based off of our region here. I've seen the evolution, right? I've been an arts advocate and I've been programming here for over 20 years. And I think that the culture of competition is where we started. I'm starting to see that evolve. And I'd like to say that we had something to do with that, right? Just the bringing of communities together over and over for over a decade. I'm so happy to have introduced so many people to one another, and they've taken off and done projects together. And I think that there's a lot of mutual support to our organization because of that, because we've been givers for 10 years and connectors for 10 years.
Did you say the culture? You said you meant to say the culture of collaboration.
Well, that's where it started. The culture of competition is where we started. So now I definitely see that it's evolved to this culture of collaboration. And interestingly, during the pandemic, that was a wild ride, right? I mean, we were all seeking for different reasons.
I'm not convinced that we're not off of it, quite frankly.
Sure. Yeah. Fair.
It feels like it. It still feels like the pandemic in many ways.
Yeah. Or maybe a second wave of like a second pandemic, like that.
I don't know.
But when we were deep in it and nobody knew, there was this moment in time, right, where for the first 3 months that nobody knew anything. And my husband's an ER doctor, so he was front and center. We were all terrified, that he was going to bring something home, whatever this thing was that nobody knew anything about, to our young children. And it was a wild ride. But people were seeking, the film studios shut down, museums closed, all these things. And people they realized, it was a moment when we realized that we were the second responders, that creatives were the ones that people were seeking for beauty, for joy, for delight, for inspiration. And we watched everything on Netflix, every little thing, because nothing else was being made. We were watching everything. We were watching Octopus Teacher, and these crazy tiger shows or whatever that was. Even I watched it because I'm like, well, the internet ran out. I guess we're watching this.
I think I watched more movies and shows during the pandemic than I had in all my previous prior years put together. It was,
right. Same. I'm not
yeah,
even a TV watcher, but I was like,
yeah,
well, there's
in it.
literally nothing else to do. Yeah.
Might as well. Yeah.
But there was this moment that, so what we did is we leaned in harder. Like instead of pulling back, we stepped up, because it's exactly when the community needed to come together. So we were hosting these creative industry roundtables, similar to what happened at your space, where we got to meet all these creative leaders, but we were hosting those virtually monthly throughout the pandemic, to bring the community together, just to have these conversations about, okay, how are you moving bodies through spaces? Like, what are you going to do with the anti-maskers? Where did you get, did you get that COVID grant? Like, how are we can we come together? Can we support in other spaces? And the most amazing thing started happening. It's like, you'd have museum directors that are like, I have this museum that I can't open the doors to. Like, does anybody need a building? And then you'd have the dance community like, yo, over here, we could use it, And then you'd have the filmmaker that's like, I'll record it, and then we can all create content and everybody wins. And so then, the museum got their beautiful virtual content, the dance company got it, the filmmaker got credit, like everybody was happy. And so these connections started happening. And then in the theater community, that was fascinating. There was this treatise that happened, I think that's what it's called, but it was like this statement that came out after the murder of George Floyd. There was this statement that came out. It was something like, I see you, white American theater, something like that. But that started this whole movement of having the deep, hard conversations about casting in theater, about who is in leadership positions in theater, just practices that had been very antiquated and not inclusive, and all of these things. But what happened is that because of that, they started this series that was all for theater, just theater companies. And for the first time, you had major institutions, like this was led by the La Jolla Playhouse, the San Diego Repertory Theater, and the Old Globe Theater, like our top 3 theaters at the time. The Lyceum is now defunct because of construction and other things. But these are Tony Award-winning theaters that had come together, and they led these conversations. And all of a sudden, in the virtual room, you had the teeniest tiny little theater companies that had never been in the same room together with these leaders that they looked up to, having monthly conversations about how to open up their spaces, how to share resources, how they could collaborate. New arts residencies started taking place in each other's venues. It was wild, and it was beautiful. There were tears, there was joy. And so I was just sort of listening in, because I'm not, I don't have like my theater career going right now at this moment. So I was just sort of like, I just want to hear what everybody's talking about, So I was just in there, but it was hard stuff. Like, some of the conversations they were having were really powerful. And I took that as inspiration for like, okay, we need to have the hard conversations too over here, but across all industries. Like, how do we lead that? And that was, it's like one of the coolest things we've ever done, for sure.
And I think that's a beautiful thing to come out of a challenging experience, which is the opportunity to get together and have this conversation around this common goal of art and culture, the arts and culture, and being able to talk about what some of the challenges are, which I would imagine led the smaller companies to see that the issues were all the same. It was just a matter of scale.
Right.
And that's an assumption. So I think that that's one of the beautiful things that it came out of that experience, because when else would you have been prompted to encourage those conversations? It didn't matter before.
Yeah. And I think that's similar to this series that we kicked off in your space of bringing together executive directors from all these different industries. And they realized, weren't there just some incredible aha moments where like, oh, you're dealing with that too, me too, but totally different industries, right? And that's been the coolest part of what our organization has sort of morphed into. This sometimes people call us like the Chamber of Commerce of Arts and Culture, for San
Which
Diego.
is what you
Because
seem to, what you are. That's what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll own that because it's been this, okay, just coming together across industries. But but I hear that all the time where people think they're alone in this bubble suffering, and they are, but they're not the only ones. And if you were to come together, you can help deal with it together and come out of it together. And so that collaboration or that event that we held in your space where we brought together all these executive directors, thankfully they had a moment of mindfulness with you. They had an opportunity to just sort of center themselves and be present. I didn't see anyone on their cell phones for 2 hours, which like never happens, right?
And we didn't even mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't mention that. You're right. We
Mm-mm.
didn't even say put your phones down, whatever. We just said let's be present, and they were present because the conversation was good and it was important. And I'm excited about what came out of there. I know that those are going to happen again and again, and I have big ideas about how we're going to implement some of those for another time.
All right, can we talk a moment about setting the vibe? If you're anything like me, your space needs to feel good in order for you to feel good. And that's why I created the Shaping Freedom line of candles. It's not just about ambiance, but really about how you align yourself internally. These are more than just candles. They shift your energy. Whether you're journaling, meditating, working out, or just taking a moment for yourself, these scents are curated to ground you, lift you up, and bring you back home to yourself. They also have an 80-hour burn time and scents that are designed to evoke feelings of alignment and internal congruency. And we can all use that. Go to shop.shapingfreedom.com and check them out. Find the one that speaks to your spirit, or buy all 4, and let them burn with intention. I want to kind of bring it back to you for a moment. You are a mother, a producer, an incredible producer, a businesswoman, a singer, an actor, doing a curator. How do you merge or integrate all of these different identities that you have in all these different roles? How do you do that? Because you're up to a lot of things, a lot of beautiful things, and you manage a lot of beautiful roles.
Yeah. I always had this vision of having a busy, creative, loud home with lots of stuff going on, lots of kids. I sort of always thought that it would just like, that'd be cool. Married to somebody, that was like I imagined what it would be like. And I think I got exactly what I wanted. So in this house, when I met my husband, so he's an ER doctor, but he's also an incredible pianist. And where we connected was the hiking. We love like hiking big mountains and nature and all these things. So that's sort of how we met. And then I went to his house for the first time and he had this beautiful piano. And I'm like, oh, you play piano? Like he never mentioned it, right? Super shy type guy. And he sits there and he's like, sure, here, I'll play for you. And it was amazing. It was like, just wow. And I thought, oh my God, I have to marry this man. That was like, wow. I thought, this is like, to have music in your life every day, like how amazing, right? So that opened my heart for sure. I was like, okay, I didn't know this about you at all. Like he never mentioned it. And he would never perform in public or anything. Like he's definitely not, he's very shy, but he's so good. I'm not exaggerating. Like I know good musicians. He's great.
I believe you.
So, we have a 10 and an 11-year-old and they're all creative. My son is a composer, a piano composer. He's been composing since he was 4. these
Mm.
big dramatic soundtrack. They sound like like film soundtracks, these big dramatic things. Since he was 4, he's been doing these things. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my God, like this is where I start to believe in, this is your second or third life, or like he's an old
Mm-hmm.
soul, or whatever those ideas are, because he hadn't lived that much to experience
Mm-hmm.
anything like this. But the feelings that were coming out of him were just like,
Yeah.
how creatives, right? It's like you don't do it because you want to. It's like you have to. Like it comes out of you. Yeah. And so he's always been that way, and he's composed 7 original pieces that are we're sending it to the Library of Congress. We're going to package it up,
Oh
do CDs, have
my.
a little CD release party. We're going to do the whole
Wow.
thing, and I don't know what happens after that. But he recently got a commission to do the soundtrack for an original independent film, and so he's done that, and we're now pitching it. They are pitching it to film festivals, and we're waiting on that. And he's 11, right? And then I have this 10-year-old daughter who from day one has been dancing and singing. Dance, like everything is like, hi, mommy, how's it going? Like just everything is in this movement form, and I've always, watched her. She's been in contemporary dance now for many years. And then she's a singer, but she's shy like her father sometimes. But when she thinks no one's listening, oh, it's good. She's got a
Wow.
voice. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be surrounded by that creativity, not only at work, but also at home. So that piano is always in action, except for right now, as I told them.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's always in action. If it's not me singing and accompanying myself, it's my daughter, or it's my son, or it's my husband. And so that it's just a source of a lot of joy. And how do I merge it all? I don't know. Nobody teaches you how to be a mother. No book could ever prepare
Right.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, zero. Like we come in having all these expectations of ourselves, and I'm going to bake. I'm going to, I'm going to be the PTA, whatever. I'm going to survive. And that is my
Yes. Yes.
goal for the day,
Yes.
But yeah, I think we've done a really great job. I married well. He's a good, kind human, and I think that has been probably my biggest accomplishment, is marrying like a good man, a good person and that's so important, because sometimes in my culture anyway, there's so much pressure to get married. Like, hurry up, you're running out of time. You're almost 30. Oh, now you're almost 35. And you feel all this pressure, even if you're with the wrong person, even if you're like, it's like, don't do that. I used to be that person that's like, oh, you should have more kids, or, oh, you should get married. No. But once I realized what motherhood and marriage really meant, I was like, are you sure? Is he good to you?
It's so important. It's so important. And thank you so much I didn't even expect us to dive into that conversation, but thank you for bringing it up, because there are so many people who it's all about the clock, and they see it as a checklist item, right? Like, I'm single. I have to not be single. I have to get snagged. I have to be with someone. And I think that if you're going to, I know that if you're going to be with someone, make sure your picker is working. Make sure your picker is working well. Make sure it's not dull, right? Make sure that it's not dull, and make sure that it's not disillusioned.
Mhm.
It's better to be alone for a while. Be alone so that you can really figure out what works for you. I really strongly believe that a lot of what happens with relationships, with divorce rates and all that, it's less about the institution of marriage not being necessarily not being a bad thing. I think it's the culture of forcing people into that institution as a way of being accepted. That's the problem. Because I believe that if more folks were to wait to learn yourself, to really make the right decision for themselves, those numbers would change. That's the problem. It's not the institution. It's the way we get pushed into it, jump into it. you know?
Yeah, it can be really toxic, to have these expectations of, like, aunties and things that, like, will say Diaz, right? I'm not just saying my family, but I'm saying in general, like, our culture,
No, in
right?
general, this is the culture.
Yeah,
This
like,
is
this
it.
this this culture of, like, you can only be fully fulfilled as a woman if you bear children and have a husband. And that's so not true, because marriage is not for everybody
That's
and
right.
children are not for everybody. Not everybody should be a parent.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, if you yeah, I mean, it is an incredibly selfless job. It's hard work. It's also often rewarding, but it's also often exhausting. And you have to give up some of your own needs, most of your own needs, in order to just, yeah, I mean, now I'm in a different place with my children, because they don't need me as much, and they're taking off into their own creative spaces, and they're getting to do their own things. When they're much younger, you just trying to keep them alive mostly.
Exactly. They still need you. They still need you. It just
Oh,
evolves.
for
The
sure.
role just
Yeah,
evolves.
yeah,
Yeah, they're going to need you forever. I think one
yeah.
of the things that I really appreciate about you as a human, Susanna, is the fact that you, or in my observation of you, you are heart forward. You're passionate. You're passionate about what you do. And the work that you're doing, while I'm sure, it can be exhausting. Being an entrepreneur is not easy, right? It can be exhausting, but your heart is in it. Raising children, curating a family, exhausting, but your heart is in it. And I think that it's such an example of what life can feel like, even when it's overwhelming, even when there's a lot going on, even when, it's tiring. Um, it's a great example of what life can look like when you live from your heart, and when you do the things that you can passionately pour yourself into.
Yeah, I think it's intention. I'm very intentional about outcomes, and I feel, yeah, I mean, to wrap up that sort of conversation about marriage and children, it matters so much who your partner is. It's so important to, we have the type of relationship where we hardly ever, like, ever argue about how we're going to raise our kids. Like, we aligned on morals and values really early on. So that's never a question. But if you don't have that, oh my gosh, how stressful. I think about exes, sometimes, and I'm like, oh, thank God that didn't work
Imagine.
out.
Oh,
I'm like,
man.
oh God, I'd be living a nightmare right now. My eyeball wants to fall
Right.
out and roll down the street.
Right.
Like, no.
Right. And
So,
that's how you wind up with 10% of your energy going toward your family, what I'm observing. And for those of you who get to watch this on YouTube and you get to see the video, this is a woman, and you can hear it in her voice also. This is a woman who is fully in her life because you're so intentional about your life. Because you're so intentional, you are fully in it. When we're not intentional, or when we're doing things because of expectations and obligations and all of that, that takes up a piece, a huge chunk sometimes, of your ability to actually show up and be present.
yeah, that's so true. I think about my mom, who, she was married. She likes to be married. She married 5 times. And so young, and sometimes made choices that were primarily about, let me just be married. Probably, she never said these words, but probably for stability, for the sake of, like, just having stability of some kind. Unfortunately, her picker was off. Um, but the intentionality part is that, even if you have not had the example, that by creating intention and saying, okay, but what do I really want? And sort of, like, reverse engineering that, right? being super honest. And I think as women, for example, in my dating life, and it happens so much. It happens so much where we're like, well, we're just dating, and I don't know if he wants kids or not. I don't know if he wants to get married. We're just going to see how it plays out.
We'll just see what happens. Go with the flow.
Just see what happens. Yeah. And meanwhile, you're wasting years and years of your life with this person that has zero intention of ever getting married, zero intention of ever having kids, because you're so worried that if you say the words, he'll run away, or he'll fly away, or you'll scare him off, or whatever these things are. And it's actually the opposite. It's like, scare away the ones that you don't, you're never going to change somebody's intention, like personal values, right? That's never going to happen. You meet a person and it's almost like right away saying, and with my husband, it was the first time in my life that I had ever had that super clear conversation. It took a lot of courage to say those words, when we were first dating. I said, listen, I just want to put this out there. I just want to know, do you ever want to be married? And do you want kids? And it's okay if you don't, it's fine. It's something that I want. And if we're not a good fit, that's cool. It's cool. I'm fine, but just be honest. It doesn't have to be with me, and I'm not rushing you on anything, but I just want to know, are we on the same path?
Know who you are.
Yeah. Are we walking the same path? And he was like, oh yeah, I definitely want those things. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we just kept going, and it did turn into that. But it's that fear that holds us back of having those hard conversations that makes it impossible for us to actually get the thing that we want. What are you going to manifest? You have to speak it.
That's right. I'll add to that. And ensuring for yourself that you're not focusing so much on getting that person to want you that you lose sight of whether or not you actually want that person. Not what, are you going to ask me? Is this person going to ask me? So sometimes the person asks you, and that's not the right person. What they want is, what they want is one thing, but ensuring that you want the same thing. And it seems like what you've been able to do, what you and your husband have been able to accomplish, is you've come together to have those challenging conversations sometimes, but very necessary conversations about what you both want, so that you can really determine whether or not you're on the same page, or, or if there's a way to kind of use your time and energy elsewhere. And so, I didn't expect us to have a little, I always want to give a nod and some wisdom to those folks who are at the beginning of making these decisions, because I think they're so important, and it's so important to have to hear that wise counsel. And I'm so glad that you shared that.
Yeah, thank you.
2 quick questions for you. If you were to imagine San Diego 20 years from now, and just in the 13 years that I've been in San Diego, it has gone through and is going through a bit of a transformation. But if you were to imagine it 20 years from now, what role would you want the arts to play in San Diego as a place?
Yeah, I think we're at a very, outside of the national politics, just our region alone is going through an incredible renaissance. It's an interesting moment for us at this point, because this is the generation that built the Rady Shell San Diego Symphony, the Epstein Theater, the Joan that just popped up in Point Loma, these big cultural powerhouses in our region. And also last year was our big year where we were on the world stage. We were designated World Design Capital San Diego and Tijuana, and not just San Diego, but San Diego, Tijuana, the region itself. When the judges came to San Diego the year before we were designated. And I was part of this committee that was like helping to curate the experience that these judges would have in the arts and culture space. And he walked before he left, I had this conversation with him, and he's like, I have traveled to however many 100 countries. We're always doing this. I've been to several border regions, and I've never seen anything like this.
Mm.
This doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, where the border almost doesn't mean anything. The border is just happens to be this thing that you have to get through, that you cross through.
It's the next exit.
Yeah, it's the next exit. Exactly. Like, this is truly its own third space where you go down there and everybody speaks English. You come to this area, most people speak some level of Spanish. They've got a few. You have communities down there that come here to shop, to go to school, be educated. You have entire retirement communities of Americans that have headed down there, and this influx of conversation and creativity, it affects all of us, right? So you have museums that are showcasing artists from Tijuana and back and forth. And so that was really exciting and really, really beautiful. And we were able to be on the world stage in that way as World Design Capital last year. And I think that what's happening with the cuts in funding nationally is almost giving us that extra push to come together again, similar to what was happening in the pandemic. It's an opportunity. Sometimes opportunities come from the strangest of places,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So we're leaning into that. We're leaning into that and bringing the community closer together and more often. What I want to see in 20 years' time, I don't know if you said 10 or 20, but
I said 20, but really or 10, whatever. But what is your vision for how people get to come, or those cultural tourists, how people come to this region and experience it?
I would like to see a city that is known as a cultural destination. I would like to see the city and the tourism authority and the airport authority and everyone, and the Visit San Diego, Visit California, all of these major powerhouses that promote our region, to lean hard, double down on San Diego as a cultural destination. We have the cultural capital here in San Diego that is worth visiting. We have it. I think that the issue is sort of synthesizing that story and being able to share it widely has been a challenge, because we get a lot of attention for the weather and the beaches and the mountains and the sand, everything's here, the desert, all of it is all right here within an hour's drive, and so it's this perfect little region for that. So we do get a lot of attention as this like sleepy beach town. And so that's what Vanguard Culture tries to do. We're trying to put it all in one place, that, hey, it's not just the zoo and SeaWorld. We've got these cool underground funky things happening that you need to know about. And it's almost like I'm giving everybody like the insider, hey, come here, let me show you something. But I would like to see the city triple down on their penny for the arts and give us 3 pennies for the arts, and they will see the impact that will reverberate financially across the board. I'd like to see just having us known as the cultural destination that we deserve to be. And I'm going to play a role in that to the extent that I can.
You are right now. I know that you climbed a mountain. What mountain are you climbing right now, literally or figuratively?
Yeah, there was an era of my life where I was climbing a lot of big, tall mountains. It caught up with me, and I've gotten some foot injuries and things that are not going to allow me to do that maybe ever. And that's something that I'm having to come to terms with. Like this new phase of my life, this age that I am, being a woman that is in this transition period of my life. And it hasn't been an easy journey in that sense, is figuring out how to still challenge my body, how to stay strong, how to still feel strong when sometimes walking hurts. And so I'm figuring that out. I'm experimenting on, you know, other types of exercises and things like that. But it also connects to my mental health, right? I want to make sure that I can still get those endorphins that take care of my mental health and keep me calm and nice, keep me nice, keep me agreeable. um, so I think the big mountain that I've been climbing recently is like the mental health portion of it, because I think when women come to our age, the age that I am, sometimes we've been gaslit by our physicians for so many decades, right? That, oh, it's just this, it's just that, and they never really ask you, oh, well, maybe you're in perimenopause, or maybe you're dealing with this other hormonal change, and all you need is this teeny little pill that's going to save you. And like, oh my god, that's amazing. So I'm so glad that that's one of the perks of being married to a physician, is that he believes in science and can can guide me a little bit
and help you out, help a sister out with some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so he went down that rabbit hole with me, and very grateful for that, because now I feel like I'm on the other side of that feeling. But I was dealing with a lot of like panic attacks and things that were happening during the pandemic. And of course, right? I mean, who wasn't? Like it was just an incredible, especially being married to an ER doctor who's seeing people die on a regular basis, way more than it had ever happened before, and the fear of it all. So that's kind of where it started. And now we're 5 years out, and I finally feel like I've climbed that mountain. Maybe I'm not at the top, but I'm like really, really close. Really, really close. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of what has been going on in the world and in this country in particular is anxiety producing. Anxiety is about a fear of what's going to happen in the future, and some of that is real, and it is perfectly understandable that the world that we would be feeling, we being, this culture, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, it's a stressful time. It's an absolutely stressful time. And I think that what has helped me, I'm on the other side of menopause and have been for a bit, but what has helped me is to pour in at as close a level, if not more, that I'm putting out. And I'm a person who was never told or taught that. It was go, 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 go. And there was really not a lot of consideration for me, the person that was expected to go. And that has helped me. It's helped me to stay grounded during the more stressful times. Sometimes we expect to just kind of walk around and our foot falls off, and it's like, I'm just going to throw my foot in my bag and keep walking. No, you're limping. You're limping for a reason. You're afraid for a reason. Things are happening. Things are happening, right? There's nothing wrong with you if feeling stressed. It is a stressful time. Feel it. Feel it, and then take more baths or do whatever it is that you need to do. But this idea, this fallacy that we can be in the pit of such a stressful time and just show up and smile and act like everything is okay is not good for our mental health. I was teaching a session the other day, and it related to communication. It was a communication model session. And I was thinking not just about like the tools. So I was like going through all of it, like the different tools that you can use and blah, blah, blah. Then I said, we can't really talk about how to effectively talk to each other or how to listen to each other without some consideration for the context or the periphery within which we're living. And so I started thinking about and kind of added into that conversation where we are. There's an annual Gallup poll called the Happiness Survey. It comes out, I think, in February. And it's the Gallup survey folks, and they do a survey around the world of how happy people are. And they rank that by country. And our country, unfortunately, this country, the United States, has steadily moved to its lowest ranking ever, which as
I
of
bet.
the survey year ending 2000, what year are we in? 2004, brought us down to 24, the lowest we've ever been. And I looked at how steadily it's decreased over the last, 5 years since 2020, since the start of the pandemic. And that's not a political statement. It's just what is, no matter what side of the aisle people are on, whether you're married, not married, whether you're old or younger, whatever. It is a very real thing that people are much less happy. And then when you factor in all of the stressors that are going on, like funding for the arts being pulled away, um, all the things that are the terrible, horrible pieces of information that we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis, and all the things we all know what those stressors are, it is perfectly understandable that people would be on edge, that we'd be on edge. We're not able to just frolic through the poppy fields, we're not able, no matter as hard as we try. um, there are some things going on. And I think that we fail ourselves and each other when we don't factor that in. And it doesn't mean to be sitting in misery or to sit in negativity. But as we're interacting with each other, I think understanding where we are, if you're in a loud party, if you're in a very loud party where the music is super loud, the two people who are speaking are going to shout at each other because there's loud music playing, right? If you're in a library, people are going to whisper to each other because that's what's happening around us. And I think that let's kind of carry with us the understanding and the acknowledgement that there are some things happening, and be a little more gentle with each other, a little more patient and kind with each other, and with ourselves.
I love that analogy. It's like we're all just shouting at each other, right? Because it's so loud right now. It's just so loud. Yeah. It made me think of this thing that I read about, the opposite of depression is expression, right? And if all we're doing is consuming, of course we're going to get depressed. We're not creating.
You have to balance it out. That's the
Yeah.
thing. You have to balance it out. We're taking all this in, and you can either just be engulfed in it and drown in it, metaphorically, or find ways to counter it. We're not going to change it in a second. These are the times. This is it.
It's like curating your own life, curating your experience.
You
Yeah.
have to. And if this is what it is, if you are a person who would never nap before and you're feeling compelled to nap, it doesn't mean anything. Nap. If you're not a bath taker, but you're like, I really want to take a bath, nurture yourself. Nurture yourself because we need it. We need it. It'll help you to be a better, kinder person to yourself, and it'll absolutely help you to be less grumpy with the people around you.
Yeah, I think most people know now that the internet, all the social media apps are targeting you based off of the clicks are related to the level of anger that they can inspire in you. So you're literally being targeted with things that piss you off. so that you stay on longer and click and watch and do the thing. And there is a, you have to do it more than once, but there is a way where you can curate your experience and unfollow certain things, start following things that bring you joy, whatever it is.
That's right.
Baking and puppies and whatever, whatever it is. There is a way to do that where you just start going, okay, I want to get really good at my finance.
I want to feel good. I can go look at that later.
Yeah. And so I did it and it was great for a while, but now it's starting to creep back in where I'm starting to see some of that hate and anger. And so I feel like I'm due for a refresh. But it's incredible that because most people, maybe I don't know what percentage of the population knows that this is how we're being targeted. But if you don't know, then it's just sort of feels like the whole world is like this. The whole world is hateful. The whole world is, and that's not true. It's not that's not really what's happening.
Because when you leave your house, there are people, you're smiling at the grocery store, people are helping each other, people are helping you to your car with your groceries.
Right. I think they're being targeted completely different. They think that we're the hateful ones. And
that's right.
Right. So
get out of the internet is really the bottom line. Just get out of the internet and you clean up. You clean your kitchen every day. You clean your room every day. You clean your bathroom every week. You don't clean up your feed once and expect it to stay clean forever. So on that note, Susanna, how can we support you?
Vanguard Culture is a 501c3 nonprofit. So of course, we're always looking for volunteers, donors, sponsors. Come attend our events, be part of our community, vanguardculture.org. We are very open to creative collaborations. We're yes people. We like to say yes to cool, interesting ideas. So always be willing to pitch that to us. You can send an email to opportunities@vanguardculture.com. If you don't support us, support the arts. Like whoever's bringing you joy in your life. If you love dance, if you love theater, film, fashion, whatever it is, support those nonprofits. They are doing really important work right now, and they need your help to survive and continue bringing joy and delight and beauty to the world. So sometimes you see an organization that looks like they have it all together, and the reality is that even the largest institutions, the most established institutions, are also struggling. So please support the arts in any way that you can, and if you choose to do so, please support Vanguard Culture.
Absolutely. Susanna, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have had this conversation, but I'm just really happy to have you in my life, my friend.
Yeah, same. So to those of you listening, thank you again for listening to the podcast. I enjoyed this conversation with Susanna so much and was so delighted that we had the opportunity to talk not just about the nonprofit and her life and arts and culture in San Diego, but that we also had the opportunity to talk about life and motherhood and how to be very intentional about curating a life that truly brings you joy and pleasure and that allows you to live from your place of passion. So, as always, please like and subscribe to the podcast. And if there's things that you're hearing on this podcast that you know of someone that you know would benefit someone else, please let them know about it. Thanks as always. Love and peace.